The signal came through the comms at an unusual frequency, one the humans had not encountered before. Alien emissaries, known across several star systems for their calculated diplomacy, had sent a message requesting a negotiation. The council chambers were vast, hovering in orbit around a neutral moon, a place where countless treaties had been forged over centuries. The humans, however, did not travel alone. That was the first thing the alien observers learned. As the human fleet approached, it became clear that this was no ordinary diplomatic mission. Ships of varying sizes and origins, some piloted by humans, others by species long indebted to humanity, moved in precise formation. Their engines shimmered with quantum stabilization energy, making them nearly invisible until they passed through the observation windows of the council chambers. The emissaries on the moon's surface exchanged confused glances. They had expected a small delegation, perhaps a single ambassadorship. They were not prepared for this display of strength coordinated across dozens of worlds. Inside the lead human vessel, Commander Elena Ward watched the formation unfold on the holographic star map. Each dot represented a fleet, an allied species, some whose names had not been spoken for centuries. They had come because humans had once helped them, protected them, guided them through impossible odds. And now the call had gone out. The call that only humanity could make. Elena knew the Alien Council would not respond well to intimidation, but they had to see the truth. Diplomacy, she believed, worked best when backed by undeniable capability. The humans were not here to conquer, yet neither could they be underestimated. For centuries, humanity had built alliances silently, earning trust through action rather than words. Now, all those debts of honor converged in a single, decisive moment. As the human fleet approached the designated coordinates, strange light patterns flickered across the council moon. The emissaries, all observing from within crystallized domes that refracted energy fields, were taken aback. One by one, the fleets of the 73 species humans had aided emerged from stealth, forming a protective ring around the human delegation. Ships with metallic exteriors gleaming, engines casting rainbow-like trails across the void, all maneuvered with the precision of a single mind. The humans smiled slightly at each other. Their allies had come, just as promised. When the humans finally docked at the council moon, their delegation stepped into the grand chamber. Alien eyes, wide and unblinking, followed their every movement. The humans carried no weapons openly, yet the aura of readiness, of centuries of survival and strategy, surrounded them like armor. Elena's calm demeanor masked the calculations racing in her mind. Every protocol, every contingency had been anticipated. Humanity had survived impossible odds before, and now they stood ready to face the scrutiny of countless alien civilizations. The head emissary floated forward, voice amplified and modulated to the human's audio range. "We were expecting negotiation. You come with this." He gestured vaguely at the formation visible behind the observation panels. Elena inclined her head slightly, her expression serene. "We do not come alone. That is the way of humans. We have friends, allies, and those whose debts of honor we honor. Negotiation works best when everyone involved understands the stakes." A ripple of murmurs passed through the council chamber. Some species shifted uneasily in their levitation fields. Others glanced at one another, exchanging messages through subtle bioluminescent signals. They had heard tales of humanity's resilience, their tactical ingenuity, and their capacity for loyalty. But witnessing it in action was entirely different. These humans had cultivated not only survival skills, but bonds that transcended centuries and light years. They had returned the favor, silently, and now humanity commanded respect before a single word of negotiation had been spoken. Elena allowed a moment of silence to settle. She could feel the weight of expectation, the potential for misunderstanding. Yet she remained composed. "We are here to talk," she said. "To find common ground. But know this, Humanity never travels alone. We carry the trust of those we have aided, and that trust is our shield as much as our strength. Any negotiation that underestimates that will fail before it begins. The alien emissaries absorbed her words, though their expressions betrayed a mixture of astonishment and apprehension. It was clear now that this negotiation was unlike any they had conducted before. The humans had arrived, backed not by the threat of force, but by the combined strength of alliances that spanned generations. Diplomacy, they realized, had taken on a new dimension. Humanity had quietly rewritten the rules of engagement. As the chamber doors sealed behind the human delegation, Elena allowed herself a small, private smile. This was only the beginning. The galaxy would learn, as it always did, that humans were cunning, resourceful, and when necessary, unstoppable. And those who remembered humanity's past kindnesses would always answer the call. The council chamber was silent for a few tense moments after Elena Ward's declaration. The emissaries, accustomed to the theatrics of diplomacy, were struggling to process what they had just witnessed. It was one thing to hear tales of humanity's alliances, but another entirely to see dozens of alien fleets respond immediately to a single summons. The humans moved with a calm authority that conveyed confidence, not arrogance, a combination that unsettled even the most experienced negotiators. As the discussion began, the aliens tried to assert control over the conversation, citing centuries of interstellar law and protocol. Elena listened patiently, taking careful notes, then responded with quiet precision. Her voice carried no threat, yet every word hinted at the consequences of underestimating humanity. "We are here to negotiate terms that benefit all parties," she said. "But understand this, our alliances are not symbolic. They represent strength, trust, and commitment forged over lifetimes. Any decision ignoring that foundation risks unintended outcomes." The emissaries faltered. They had expected compliance, or at most, polite resistance, but not this display of calculated restraint backed by overwhelming support. Some whispered to one another, exchanging data through encrypted neural links. Their calculations had not accounted for the scale of loyalty humans commanded. Across the room, holographic projections of human-led fleets showcased strategic positions, emergency protocols, and defensive capabilities. Each projection was accompanied by historical data, reminding the council members of every world humanity had assisted. One of the elder alien delegates, a towering figure with crystalline skin, finally spoke. "You present an argument beyond words. These fleets, these alliances, how long have you maintained such coordination?" Elena smiled faintly. "Since we learned that survival does not depend on individual might alone. It depends on relationships, trust, and foresight. We act not out of domination, but from understanding that no species can endure alone in this galaxy." The chamber shifted uncomfortably. Humanity's approach was so fundamentally different from the competitive, hierarchical methods most species employed that it defied their logic. The humans had created networks of reciprocity and honor, linking hundreds of species across light years in a web that moved at subspace speeds. Each ship that had answered the call was not merely a military asset, but a testament to centuries of mutual respect and timely intervention. Elena's second-in-command, Lieutenant Narration, monitored live comms from the fleets outside. Subtle anomalies indicated the alien armada had begun repositioning in response to the display of coordinated strength. Even without firing a weapon, humans had achieved a tactical advantage by demonstrating that any aggression would trigger unified retaliation from multiple allied species. Elena knew that diplomacy now worked in their favor, not just for negotiation, but for deterrence. The emissaries tried to reassert control, proposing limitations on the human fleet's presence near certain sectors. Elena responded with an offer: detailed maps, logistical cooperation, and transparent oversight of their allied forces, proof that humans sought collaboration, not conquest. Every concession was paired with subtle reminders of their preparedness, their alliances, and their capacity to respond instantly if negotiations failed. By the time the first formal agreements were tabled, it was clear that humanity had reshaped the expectations of the Council. The aliens realized that humans did not rely on brute force alone. They leveraged history, loyalty, and the willingness of countless species to answer a single call. The negotiations proceeded with cautious respect, with humanity guiding terms that prioritized balance and mutual benefit. Even as talks continued, subtle communications flowed between human vessels and their allies. Small adjustments to fleet formations, contingency alerts, and shared surveillance created a safety net invisible to the Council, but known intimately to humans and their partners. Every gesture, every maneuver was deliberate, ensuring that humanity's presence would remain secure without escalating tensions. Hours later, as the first session ended, the Council acknowledged the unprecedented situation. Humans had demonstrated that negotiation was not a mere exercise in words. It was a reflection of preparation, alliances, and the understanding that trust, once earned, could be as formidable as any weapon. Elena left the chamber with her delegation, calm but alert, knowing that the next phase of this negotiation would test their ingenuity even further. In the silent corridors of the moon, whispers spread among the alien observers. Humanity had arrived not just with fleets, but with an entirely new paradigm. Their patience, foresight, and ability to rally allies across generations had rewritten the rules. Every species that had benefited from human assistance had returned in kind, and together they had created a force no single empire could ignore. Elena allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. Humanity had once again proven that its strength was not measured in firepower alone, but in foresight, loyalty, and the bonds it forged across the galaxy. And as the stars stretched infinitely beyond the Council moon, she understood that the decisions made today would ripple through history, demonstrating that humans did not travel alone, and the galaxy would never forget it. Even as formal negotiations continued, reports began arriving from the outer systems. Human-led fleets, reinforced by their allies, were already conducting coordinated patrols and surveillance, mapping previously unexplored sectors and detecting anomalies that others had overlooked. The Alien Council, though officially engaged in talks, could not hide their growing unease. Humanity's influence extended far beyond the negotiation chamber. Commander Elena Ward reviewed data flowing from every allied ship, each report adding clarity to the human tactical network. The galaxy was a complex web of alliances, resources, and unknown threats, and humanity had spent centuries quietly weaving itself into the fabric of that web. Every world they had assisted, every life saved, every fleet they had protected contributed to a lattice of loyalty that now encircled them. The emissaries could see it, but comprehension lagged behind reality. In one distant system, a rogue faction attempted to exploit the Council's preoccupation. Within minutes, human forces and allied species intervened with precision, neutralizing threats before they could escalate. No single strike was heavy-handed. Each action demonstrated calculated restraint, a lesson in both power and diplomacy. Reports of these interventions filtered into the Council, causing murmurs of astonishment. Humanity did not merely survive threats, they neutralized them while preserving balance. Inside the Council chamber, emissaries struggled to reconcile centuries of interstellar politics with the reality before them. Humans had demonstrated that diplomacy was inseparable from capability. Elena observed the subtle shifts in attention, the whispers among Council delegates, and knew the tide was turning. Allies were not just passive instruments, they were active participants, integrated into humanity's strategies seamlessly. Lieutenant Mara Chen adjusted fleet formations remotely, ensuring that every species maintained visibility and readiness without provoking alarm. Humans had mastered the art of coordinated presence. A fleet could be both protective and unobtrusive, signaling intent without aggression. The emissaries realized that human influence was as much psychological as it was tactical. One message from a distant ally could ripple across the galaxy, altering decisions before humans even spoke. A sudden alert interrupted Elena's thoughts. Deep space sensors had detected a previously unknown warship approaching the Council moon. Its design was alien, sleek, and threatening, cloaked in stealth. The humans responded immediately, coordinating with allied ships to position themselves strategically. The Council watched, unprepared for the speed and efficiency of the deployment. Elena remained calm, her experience guiding every movement. The potential for catastrophe was immense, yet her confidence inspired trust across all fleets. The rogue warship, attempting to intimidate or disrupt the negotiations, was neutralized without violence. A containment field and precision electronic countermeasures ensured it posed no threat, while still demonstrating human capability. The Council, witnessing this, began to understand a critical lesson. Humanity's power was not brute force. It was foresight, preparation, and the capacity to mobilize loyalty across light years in real time. As the day progressed, negotiations shifted. Alien delegates now spoke with genuine respect, adjusting their demands to align with human proposals. The humans did not dominate discussions through threat. They commanded attention through competence, unity, and the unmistakable evidence of their allies' presence. Every example, every intervention, reinforced the message. Humans were not alone, and any attempt to undermine them would provoke consequences extending far beyond a single council or planet. Elena reflected on centuries of careful planning. Humanity had endured near-extinction events, survived hostile empires, and nurtured relationships across vast distances. Now, in this council chamber, they were demonstrating the culmination of those efforts. Trust, honor, and strategic foresight were as powerful as any weapon, and humanity had learned to wield them with precision. As the first phase of negotiation ended, emissaries began informal discussions among themselves. Whispers circulated. Humans had created a network unlike anything known, and they did not merely travel. They traveled with the collective strength of all those they had aided. A new paradigm of power had emerged, one that blended diplomacy, strategy, and loyalty into an unstoppable force. Humanity had shown the galaxy that negotiation was inseparable from preparedness, and that alliances built on respect could outmatch even the most feared fleets. Elena allowed herself a moment to breathe. The galaxy was vast, complex, and unpredictable, yet humanity had positioned itself not merely as a player, but as a stabilizing force. The decisions made here would echo for centuries, shaping interstellar relations. And as she watched allied ships glide silently through the void, she knew the message was clear. Humans did not negotiate alone, and the galaxy had just begun to understand the extent of their reach. The final day of negotiations arrived, and the council chamber felt different than before. What had started as a standard diplomatic meeting had evolved into a demonstration of human ingenuity, alliances, and strategy. Every alien delegate now recognized that humanity was not merely a species. They were a force that transcended conventional understanding. Outside, the fleets maintained their silent vigilance, a visual reminder of the power humanity had amassed through centuries of careful action and unwavering honor. Commander Elena Ward surveyed the chamber as delegates presented their final proposals. Subtle changes in tone and phrasing reflected the respect humanity had earned, though the aliens tried to maintain composure. They had been challenged in ways they had never anticipated, not through aggression, but through foresight, collaboration, and the undeniable reach of human influence. Elena's calm presence projected confidence, but inside, she analyzed every detail, anticipating every potential disruption. Suddenly, a warning alert appeared on the human tactical map. An unknown vessel, cloaked and approaching at unprecedented speed, had entered the system. The council chamber tensed. This was the final test, the galaxy's way of challenging humanity's claims of preparedness. Elena did not flinch. Signals were sent instantly to all allied ships, and the fleet shifted formation seamlessly, surrounding the unknown intruder with precision. Even before communication was possible, the human-led forces had contained the threat, demonstrating control without violence. The alien emissaries were stunned. Here was proof of humanity's ability to act decisively while respecting the sanctity of negotiation. Every species that had once benefited from human aid had answered the call, responding with loyalty and precision. The humans had transformed the council chamber from a place of debate into a stage showing the integration of trust, capability, and foresight across dozens of worlds. Elena stepped forward, addressing the council. "We came to negotiate in good faith," she said. "But understand this, humanity never travels alone. Our allies, our friends, the species we have aided through history, when the call is made, they answer. This is not a threat, it is a demonstration of the bonds we have cultivated. Treat this as a reminder. Decisions made without considering the consequences of those bonds may have repercussions far beyond this chamber." A silence fell over the council. The alien delegates absorbed her words, realizing that humans had redefined diplomacy itself. Agreements were ratified more swiftly than anticipated, terms adjusted to reflect fairness, mutual respect, and the practical influence of humanity's networks. For the first time in recorded history, the negotiations concluded with a consensus built not on intimidation, but on the clear demonstration of unity and loyalty. As the human delegation prepared to depart, whispers echoed among the council members. "They are not merely negotiators," one elder delegate admitted. "They are strategists, diplomats, and a force the galaxy cannot ignore." Across the chamber, eyes met in reluctant acknowledgement. Humans had altered the balance of power not through conquest, but through foresight, alliances, and action that honored commitments spanning generations. Outside the chamber, the fleets dispersed back to their home sectors, maintaining silent contact with one another. Humanity's presence had reshaped expectations across the galaxy. Any future challenge would now be measured against the standard they had set. Humans did not rely on numbers or brute force alone. They leveraged relationships, trust, and the willingness of entire species to act together. That network, forged through centuries of aid and careful strategy, ensured that Earth and its allies could face even the most formidable threats. Elena allowed herself a small smile as the council doors closed. Humanity had not only survived this negotiation, they had changed the galaxy's perception of what a single species could achieve. They had demonstrated that trust, honor, and preparedness were as formidable as any weapon, and that alliances built on respect could withstand the tests of time, distance, and adversity. As the human fleet departed, stars stretching infinitely beyond, one thing was clear. The galaxy had witnessed a new era of diplomacy, one defined by humans and the bonds they had forged. Every species that had once relied on human aid had answered when called. And for humanity, this was only the beginning. The message was unmistakable. Humans never traveled alone, and the galaxy would never forget it.